Happy Thursday, and welcome to day 4 of my attachment theory series. Today we are diving into the Avoidant Dismissive Attachment Style. Right, so I'm just going to go straight in. So these guys, they make up the next biggest chunk of the population next to the securely attached people. So approximately 30% of the population tend more to lean on the avoidant dismissive attachment strategies. How are these created? Well, these guys, as infants, would have had probably the most basic needs met, really, in terms of food, water, shelter, but on an emotional level, not so much. Caregivers may have employed sort of cry it out methods, or left these infants alone quite often to deal with their own emotions, or sent to their room during tantrums, things like that. So basically the message that these guys received was that emotions got them pushed away. So they learned very quickly to not express their emotions. And so, yeah, these guys, I think, get overlooked more often as well. As children, they became very independent very early on. They became the easy kids, the ones that didn't have high needs or high demands. They looked after themselves mostly. Yeah, and this is what they did to ensure their survival of being connected with caregivers, even if it was just in a physical proximity. If they weren't expressing any issues, I suppose, then it meant that they could stay close to their caregivers as opposed to being pushed away somewhere when they did express something. Yeah, so often we see that these caregivers may have dependencies on substances, alcohol, drugs, that kind of thing as well, that kind of keeps those parents preoccupied, I suppose, which is another reason why these little kids have to sort of become little adults quite quickly and look after themselves, and sometimes take on the role of parenting as well. Okay, so how they are in the world. So they appear quite confident, very what seems to be low levels of anxiety, higher avoidance. That being said, though, on a physiological level of their nervous system, there's actually a lot going on. So the energy that the nervous system has to put into suppressing all of these emotions and feelings means that it's kind of working overtime, and there's like high levels of cortisol, and the stress hormones and all of that is going on at a much deeper level that they're probably not consciously aware of. So because of this, they do like to spend time alone. This is their place where they feel most safe, most regulated and content. So long periods of time with other people and in social settings can be draining and exhausting. And yeah, especially if it's like a high level emotion as well. So that can be really too much for these guys to take in. They're very independent. They do not like to rely on others, which makes a whole lot of sense, really, because they learned very early on that their needs were not going to be met by anybody else, and so they had to take care of themselves. They put a lot of time and energy into their hobbies and their work. So these guys are like the workaholics, or the ones that are like really passionate about, I don't know, surfing or golfing or whatever. And they feel really good when they do this. Like, this is where they feel most successful in their life, is their work or their hobbies. Something that's not so much relational, I suppose. Yeah. They end up feeling overly responsible for other people and what's going on for them. So this means that they can often mistake other people's needs as obligations, really. So they feel this, oh, I've got to fix everyone, or I've got to make this better for so-and-so, when really another person might actually just be expressing a genuine need that they need to get met. And it can still be a no there, which also leads to the boundaries. So these guys tend to say yes to everything because of that overly feeling of responsible to help and fix everyone. But then what can happen is that they generally tend to feel regretful about that later. So they'll commit to something and then they'll be resentful when they have to follow through. Sometimes they don't follow through at all. They'll just avoid it altogether, or they'll forget, I suppose. They tend to be pretty suspicious of others in the world, always sort of questioning other people's intentions. Pretty worried about being taken advantage of or taken for granted. So that's sort of how they are in the world. I'm just going to go down, sorry. How they see and treat themselves. So they have a pretty high view of self and a pretty low view of others. So for this reason, it can make it very difficult for these guys to identify that there is an issue or there's things to be worked on in terms of relationships. Generally, this group is not putting their hand up to go get help with, therapy or healing or that kind of thing. What generally happens is in close, intimate relationships, or maybe it could even be issues with work or colleagues or friends or that kind of thing. It's generally somebody else raising an issue, going, hey, I don't think this is quite right. Maybe you should seek some help. That sort of suggests that these guys, might have some inner work or some inner wounds that need tending to. So, yes, they hate the idea of feeling blamed and punished, and get quite defensive very easily. And not expressing emotions for them is like a sign of strength. So they would see their ability to like hold it all together and appear strong to the outside world as like a great thing, as a good thing. And will generally then see others who are expressing vulnerability or emotions or that kind of thing as a weakness. And that can be quite triggering for them as well when another person is sharing that. Again, they don't have the same as yesterday, not very good coping strategies. Their ability to regulate is generally auto-regulated. They don't tend to reach out to do co-regulation, and self-regulation is mostly a bit confronting as well because there's so much they don't know how to connect inwards very well, which leads on to the fact that they're not even really sure what their needs are or what their feelings are. They tend to have a bit of a hard time getting into the body. There seems to be like a bit of a disconnect, like a numbing sort of sensation going on, which can make it very hard to identify what they feel inside. Sorry. Yes, so in intimate relationships, they like lots of space. They tend to not trust very easily, can be suspicious of their partner, cheating, that kind of thing. Sometimes this need for space, because they're not very good at identifying what their feelings or needs are, but they just know when they're starting to feel swamped or overwhelmed by their partner. It can mean that they'll kind of disappear. These are the people that are doing the ghosting in relationships. And that could be, it could be for half an hour, or it could be for a week, depending on where these people are at. Yes, because being too close triggers them and overwhelms them. So there's that need to pull back and go back to their safe space, which is alone. They often will perceive their partner as needy or clingy or overly emotional or wanting too much. And while this may be true if they're partnered with an anxious ambivalent attached person, like we discussed yesterday, you can see how that would be quite a toxic cycle that people can get stuck in. But also, these guys can perceive genuine needs for closeness and connection and intimacy as too much as well. So even if a securely attached person was requesting this from an avoidant dismissive, there could still be some reluctancy to enter into that connection. They worry about losing their independence, basically, and becoming merged and enmeshed with another person and losing themselves in a relationship. So they like to keep this kind of just distance, you there and me here, which can obviously cause issues in a relationship when people are lacking that vulnerability to be intimate and close. Yes, and so this often leads them to a partner bringing this up, and then they feel as though they're not good enough, or that they can't meet the expectations of their partner, and so this feeds into this belief that relationships are not worth it, better off alone, and that it's hard work, basically. Yeah, so I think that sort of covers mostly what's happening for the avoidant dismissive attached person. Again, I'll be posting my little slides with my little people and their little insights into each attachment. Tomorrow I will be going into disorganized attachment. Yes, and then next week I'm actually I'm going to do a few more little posts, but it's going to be on how do we heal these attachment wounds, and I'd really like to touch on next week what earned secure attachment is, because I feel like it's worth mentioning that that doesn't always look the same as somebody who's been securely attached since an infant. So yeah, I hope that you guys will be joining me for that as well. But for now, that is all I got. So I hope you have a beautiful rest of your Thursday, and I will chat to you soon. Bye bye.